All right, this is Patrick Rogers, and today we have the privilege to have Joel Sercel on the show. And Joel is the founder and CEO of Trans Astra Corporation. Welcome to the show, Joel.
Hey, it's super to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Super excited to have you on the show. This is going to be such a treat for folks. Joel is a proven space technology pioneer and team leader whose technical expertise spans space mission design, space propulsion, satellite design, architectural design, and systems engineering. He runs an agile company where young engineers are inspired and empowered to build, test, break, and bust through technical limits and mature innovations at breakneck speed. Joel's expertise and leadership has been sought out by such organizations as NASA, Blue Origin, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and the U.S. intelligence community, and of course, the U.S. Air Force. Joel has a PhD from Caltech in plasma physics and space propulsion. I'm very humbled to be here to have you on the show as a recovering nuclear engineer myself. He spent 14 years at NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where he conceived the first ion propulsion system used in deep space missions to a comet and asteroids, Ceres and Vesta. So really cool stuff there. He's also served as the founding chief technology officer of a Y Combinator space company that has since gone public. And that's before returning to Trans Astra to fulfill his lifelong dream, working to establish a thriving in-space economy that will offer unbound potential for future generations. So Joel, amazing to have you on the show. This is going to be so fun because we're going to talk about some technical stuff, but also how you've been able to create a community of amazing people and amazing organization. But before we get into all that, what's one interesting fact about yourself that not many people know?
I apologize. My phone was not silenced, and it will be now.
No, you're good. I didn't even hear it. No problem.
Let's try this again. I've got a lot of hobbies and everything, but the one that makes me a little weird or different is one of my hobbies is biohacking. Basically, using information from the science of biology and medicine to hack the human body to change gene expression, to change, change your physiology and so on. And, as a guy who's pushing 63 and looking at the future of humanity in space, my goal is to turn back the biological clock. And the biological clock in the human body, some scientists believe, is governed by this thing called the epigenome. And you can actually measure your biological age with your epigenome, and you can use that to adjust things like your diet, exercise, supplements, those sorts of things. And so I've been doing that for a few years now. And although my biological age is 63, I'm going backwards in time biologically by some measurements. So it's kind of a fun hobby, and there's some risk in it, but it might help me live longer. I'm most interested in staying vital longer.
Absolutely. Well, you look fantastic for 63, brother, man. You look great. I know the podcast listeners.
If I could get the hair to come back, then that would be a success. But I started losing that in my my late 20s, so I think that's going to be a while until that happens.
Oh, very cool. Well, that is fantastic. I'm super fascinated by that kind of stuff. I know that's not the purpose of the call today, but thanks for sharing that. That is, and I love people that are taking on. It's almost like every bucket of your life, what can I do to maximize my health, maximize my life? And it serves you in so many other ways too. I'll bet that once you started going into this, your brain started working a lot more efficiently once you really started going after this.
Well, no one ever accused me of having a very efficiently functioning brain, so I don't know about that. But I do think, relative to, things like short-term memory and processing speed and that sort of thing, my reflexes are pretty good. And, my athletic performance is pretty good. So yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So tell us about your company. Tell us about Trans Astra.
Well, Trans Astra is a company. We say that Trans Astra is a vision-driven company in the sense that we formed Trans Astra with a vision that for the long-term thriving of humanity, we need to be able to continue to grow exponentially. in terms of population, in terms of the technology that we use and that sort of thing. And in order to do that, we have to tap into the resources of the solar system because the Earth is a finite body. As Tsiolkovsky, who was a great mathematician and pioneer in space, said, the Earth is the cradle of mankind, but you can't live in the cradle forever. Humanity must move into space in order to continue to thrive and grow for the next 1,000, 10,000 years. And so Trans Astra is focused on that vision of how do we harness the resources of the solar system, in particular asteroids. There's enough material in the asteroid belt to support a thriving population of 1 trillion people spread throughout the solar system, living in worlds made out of asteroids. That's a vision that we can get excited about. It's the immortality project for our species. And it's an immortality project for all the people at Trans Astra are working on that we know that as we work on this, we can contribute to something that's bigger than ourselves. So to do that, we have to develop the technology for asteroid mining. So we identified several critical problems that have to be solved in order for humanity to be harvesting asteroids at massive industrial scales. We have invented about 20 different distinct technologies to solve those problems, and they're either patented or patent pending. And they break down into 4 distinct areas, and there are near-term business opportunities in each of those areas. So we're a vision-driven company, very practical in our execution,
right.
Building businesses today based on the things that will enable humanity to harvest the resources of the solar system.
So what are the 4, I mean, if you're at liberty to say, are you at liberty to say the 4 specific? Yeah.
Sure, it's no secret. So it's some of your audience, I think, will be on video, or is it all audio?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so it's going to be, yeah. I mean, we don't want to share a video, but yeah. Oh, yeah. You're fine with that. Yeah,
okay.
It's your background.
So if you look over my shoulder, this is a photograph of a compound telescope system, one of 2 compound telescopes that Trans Astra has built, and it has some breakthrough technologies in it. We're operating telescopes currently in Central California and Arizona. And we'll be building a new telescope in Australia in a few months, and another one which will either be in Hawaii or Colorado. Why telescopes? We have some amazing technology that turns these inexpensive little telescopes into powerful asteroid prospecting tools. So one of the 4 problems that you have to solve is you have to be able to find, track, and prospect asteroids remotely. That's an unsolved problem right now for humanity. We estimate that there are about 1 billion near-Earth asteroids, larger in size than, say, a car. But humanity has only found less than 40,000 of them. And in order for asteroid mining to become practical in the near term, we have to find hundreds of times more asteroids so that we can find those that are really easy to get to and mineable. So technology number 1 is asteroid prospecting with telescopes. Technology number 2 is we need to get around better in space. So everyone knows that Elon Musk has built reusable rockets and is building the Starship, which will probably launch, in this month, in April of 2023. Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, lots of people are developing low-cost launch. But the problem is, once you get to low Earth orbit, you're only halfway to where you need to go in space. And we need better ways to get around in space if we're going to be harvesting asteroids. So we've invented propulsion technology, our omnivore solar thermal rocket, which will power our Worker B orbit transfer vehicles. And those rockets are in test in the lab here in the building where I am right now today.
Wow.
So number 1, asteroid prospecting with telescopes. Number 2, better in-space transportation. Number 3, when you get to an asteroid, you can't land on it. It's not like the Bruce Willis movie where he lands on an asteroid and sets off a bomb. You can't walk on an asteroid. You have to capture them in bags. So capture bag technology to capture asteroids so you can process that material. And number 4 is much better technology for harnessing sunlight in space and concentrating that sunlight and using it to do things like material processing. Those are the 4 cornerstone technology areas of Trans Astra. And it turns out each one of those has a near-term business today that we're scaling. So the telescope technology can be used to track objects through cislunar space. That's a very important thing for traffic monitoring in space and monitoring orbital debris that could be dangerous. technology number two, the propulsion technology.
Yeah.
We need better orbit transfer vehicles and upper stages to get around in space, and so on.
Gotcha.
And I can
Very
go into
cool.
that more if you want.
So you really have four business units, and they're almost like four bottlenecks that will prevent you from being able to successfully harvest the mine the asteroids. But at the same time, they're also potentially income producing businesses along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's right.
Very cool.
So we're vision driven, sort of in the same sense that SpaceX is vision driven. The SpaceX, everyone knows they want to go to Mars and build a city on Mars. They're not building a city on Mars right now, but they're worth $125 billion as a company, based on all the space technology that they're building that's making that foundation for their Mars initiative. So we're a little bit analogous to that.
Yeah. So all right, asteroids. Why asteroids versus like Neptune or any of the other planets? Like what do asteroids have that is so special?
Well, it's not what asteroids have that's so special. It's what planets have that's so bad. And that is, planets have gravity wells. And gravity wells suck you down to the bottom of the planet. And once you're on the surface, they bring you down to the surface of the planet. Once you're there, it's very hard to get off the surface. And then when you're on the surface of a planet, you can only touch the top of the planet. And, like 99.9999% of all the material in the Earth is not accessible because you'd have to dig too deep to get it. Mm-hmm. And the really valuable materials, things that we call precious metals, are mostly at the core of the planet where you're never going to get them. Whereas the asteroids are floating in space, and it's easy to hop from one asteroid to another without having to fight a gravity well. Once you get to an asteroid, many, but not all asteroids are undifferentiated geologic objects. What does that mean? When a planet forms, it becomes molten, it becomes spherical, the heavy stuff settles out to the core, and then it makes it so that many of the materials that you really need for engineering and lots of applications are not accessible. Yeah. Whereas on an asteroid, if you go to an undifferentiated asteroid, you go to a metal asteroid, like Psyche is made of metal. You get there, you just found a mountain of metal. If you go to a carbonaceous chondritic asteroid, or an asteroid made of carbonaceous chondritic material, which is a type of asteroid that we'll be going after early, if it's a primitive body, you get there and pretty much the whole asteroid is made of the same material. Pick up any rock on the asteroid or capture the asteroid in a bag and have a robotic arm grab a piece of it. It's pretty much the same as any other piece. And so in mining on a planet, the first thing you have to do is you have to dig deep wells. You have to differentiate and beneficiate the materials, where on an asteroid, the materials is just there, and any part of the asteroid is as good as the rest. But the big deal is, once you're a spacefaring civilization, the last thing you want to do is go down into the bottom of gravity well, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy to get back up out of that gravity well. So as humanity becomes spacefaring, we'll be building worlds in space out of asteroids wherever we go. A lot of people are taught in school that the asteroid belt is this group of rocks floating in space between Mars and Jupiter. That's one of these things that they teach you in school that isn't quite right. In reality, the asteroids stretch all the way from the sun, from just a few times the diameter of the sun in distance from the sun, all the way out beyond Pluto. So wherever you go in the solar system, there's asteroids to be harvested. And those are the resources that humanity will be able to grab, and then use solar power to process into all the constituent parts, and then use robotic manufacturing driven by the new generation of AI that's coming online to manufacture giant megastructures, worlds that people will be able to live in. It'll start small, where there'll be space stations that are as big as today's space station, then 10 times bigger than that, then 10 times bigger than that, bootstrapping to ever bigger industries in space. That's the vision.
Wow. And so the whole concept is, like, on Earth, we don't have these deep wells. We're able to access whatever resources we need readily. Whereas in space and in these other planets, you can't because of the deep well reasons or other reasons, but asteroids is a readily available resource.
Right. Well, we're really not able to access the resources that we need readily on the Earth. Think about all the constraints right now. We're trying to go to electric vehicles. That's a great thing. Ultimately, electric cars can be powered by nuclear reactors and solar panels, and reduce certain pollutants in the atmosphere and everything. But the amount of digging and mining required to get that material is astronomical.
Okay. Gotcha.
And that has environmental impact. And so very soon it will make a lot more sense to get strategic materials and precious metals from asteroids than from the Earth, just because they're floating around there, easy to get. Now, the reason the Sutter telescope, the one that and our Sutter telescope technology is so important, is that we know from scientific statistical models of the distribution of asteroids that there are probably 5,000 asteroids bigger in size than a pickup truck that are actually easier to get to than the moon in terms of how much rocket propellant you require to get there and back. We know that scientifically, and we can put uncertainty measurements on the statistics of that number. The problem is, of those 5,000 targets, mineable, attractive ones that we know of, there's only about 20. And the reason is our telescopes haven't been good enough to find them. So there's a prospecting gap. So the reason we call the Sutter telescopes the Sutter telescopes is because they're named after Sutter's Mill in California, where gold was discovered in the 1800s.
Right.
That led to the California gold rush. That led to the settlement of the American West, and the United States is an economic superpower. We see a similar sort of thing happening in space. When we get enough Sutter telescopes operating, and we have a plan actually to take this technology that we're currently operating on the ground for the Space Force for finding objects in cislunar space. And we're finding thousands of asteroids every week with these telescopes also. Wow. But eventually what we plan to do is we've designed the technology from the start so that it can go into space. So we can build Sutter telescopes in space. And we have a plan for a space mission that we call Sutter Ultra, that in its first year of operation will discover 100 times more asteroids than have been discovered in the entire history of astronomy, according to our models and simulations. And these have been peer reviewed.
Very cool.
And so what that'll do is that'll find the thousands of very accessible asteroids that are easier to get to than the surface of the moon.
Yeah.
And we think that'll usher in a gold rush to space.
Wow. And I want to dive into a little bit more of kind of the whole being a vision set company and creative company. But one last question, my curiosity. So asteroids, are they really just, where did they come from? Did they come from planets that have imploded or exploded eons ago or millions of years ago, or, where do they come from?
Yeah, mostly not.
Okay.
Mostly not.
That's displaying my ignorance here, Joel.
Sure. Yeah. So the way the solar system was formed is there was a cloud of gas and dust that was gravitationally bound, and that cloud of gas and dust started to accrete, to stick together, and as it did, it started to, and it had a certain amount of angular momentum. As it came together due to gravitational collapse, it started to spin. And the planets all formed out of that initial that disk that formed the solar system. And the fact that it was spinning is why all the planets are in the same plane. We call that the plane of the ecliptic.
Got it.
Very roughly, some of the planets are more inclined than others. But there was leftover gas and dust from that formation. That leftover gas and dust continued to accrete, and it formed asteroids and comets. Now, as those asteroids and comets would start to collide with planets, they built up the planets. So the oceans of the Earth are made out of water from that original formation of the solar system, and then from bombardment of asteroids and comets that contained water afterwards. And that's
Very cool.
why the asteroids are spread throughout the solar system, and the small bodies continue out into the outer solar system, and we get comets. And so now there are many different types of asteroids. They're primitive asteroids have not undergone a lot of accretion and collision with other asteroids, and they're made of the stuff that they were originally formed of from the early days of the solar system. And we can actually map where in that original protoplanetary disk these primitive asteroids came from, and we actually have a map of that protoplanetary disk that formed the solar system. We have a map of where different parts of that disk and what the different materials were made of. So if you go to Antarctica and pick up a rock,
right,
there's only one place that rock could have come from, and that's space. It's an asteroid.
Got it.
Or it could be a piece of rock that was blown off the surface of Mars or the moon or something through a collision. You pick it up, take it to a laboratory, and chemically analyze it.
Right.
We actually have good, solid scientific models that will tell you where that rock formed billions of years ago in the early days of the solar system. And then a friend of mine who used to be a student of mine at Caltech, his name is Bill Bottke. He's the top modeler. He's the top person who does computational models of the evolution of the solar system as it affects the distribution of asteroids in the NEO belt, the near Earth objects. And he can tell you where in the solar system it came from and what dynamical process it went to get it to the Earth. And they actually have time-based computational models of the solar system that goes back billions of years. It's really very interesting.
That's amazing.
That's a little off target relative to the business of Trans Astra and so on, but we have to know a little bit about that if we're going to be mining asteroids someday.
Absolutely. No, this was a fascinating conversation so far. I'm absolutely fascinated that this concept even exists. So I'd like to come back to, the one thing that you said is that you said it a couple of times, that we're a very vision-centered company, vision-centric. So talk to us about how critical that's been for you. Is that something that, has been, affects the people that work with you, investors, customers, employees, everything?
Yeah. So, if you ask yourself, what's the key to happiness? I think there are a couple of things. I think one key to happiness is know that you're working on something important and that your life's work has meaning. Another key to happiness is that you're surrounded by people who share your values and your direction, and a team, whether it's a family, a company, a community, whatever. So we humans are social creatures, and we want to be around other people who see the world the same way we do. We're naturally tribal. Like if you're primitive, you're tribal in the sense that, that person looks different than me. So, that person is not of my tribe. But what we really want to do is have a tribe of like-minded people who share a common vision and are moving in the direction of good for humanity. And we want to make that tribe as big as we can to embrace as much of humanity as possible. So the business of having a vision and a direction, working towards the good, we find that our investors, our customers, and our employees are very excited about it. And you see this in different companies. I remember I was at SpaceX several years ago in the early days of the Falcon 9. I was there for a meeting. I was helping a customer of mine. This was before the formation of Trans Astra. I was helping a customer of mine make a decision on whether they wanted to buy Falcon 9 rockets from Elon. And I was there, and we were kicking the tires on the Falcon 9, talking about the tech and the processes and that sort of thing. And Elon came to SpaceX that day, and he went to do an all-hands meeting. And he went upstairs, and they had, and if anyone's been to the Hawthorne plant in the early days, there was an upstairs area that was like a balcony that overlooked the manufacturing floor. He went up there, and he started talking to the people, and they all came around to see him address the company and talk about the vision. And there was a palpable sense of community based on this focused vision of going to Mars that was very powerful. You see the same thing in Steve Jobs at Apple. He was talking about using computers to fundamentally change and improve people's lives. Henry Ford was about, it used to be really hard to get from point A to point B. Let's make it so that people can get from point A to point B easily. And it's not just for rich people. People who, leaders who change the world build companies based on vision, and the employees, the customers, and the investors all buy into that vision. We find that to be a very powerful force multiplier.
No, fantastic. Hey, and I couldn't agree more. I think that there's a lot of businesses out there that just exist, like, an HVAC company or any kind of company. They're out there. They formed the company, but they don't really have a vision. They don't really have a mission. Do you think companies like that should also have a vision?
Yes. There's a HVAC company in Southern California that advertises, and the founder gets on the radio and he talks about how he bought the company because he wanted to work in quality systems, and how he trains each of his employees on how to do a great job for the customer and make sure that when they fix your air conditioner, it's going to stay fixed and they can rely on you, and that they don't take shortcuts. And what he's talking about is he's talking about making life better for his customers. And he's talking about respecting his employees. And, you can do this in any business. You can, if you someone who loves food can start a restaurant, and they can have this vision that it's almost a spiritual thing, giving food to people, right?
Yeah,
you're literally giving
absolutely.
them life. And you say, I'm going to make healthy food that tastes tremendous. When people come to my restaurant, they're going to have this wonderful experience. I'm going to build this ambiance that makes families and friends and teams come together. When they do, they join in unity. And, someone with that kind of a vision, with passion, they're going to be a Michelin rated restaurant before you know it. And they're going to have a more successful business than everyone else. So, the most important word in the word free market is free. It's about the free, the wonderful thing about a company is a group of people who come together with a shared vision to sell something in the free market that no one has to buy. No one is forced to buy your product. You're giving them an opportunity to buy something. And if they, in their freedom, see the best value, they'll buy it. And if they don't, they won't.
Right.
And if you are passionate about it, you feel something greater about it, you make the world better. And that's true of virtually any industry that you think of. If you come at it from a vision, why am I here? How does this make the world better? How does it allow me to lead a team of people on a mission together who are working together? You will have a superior company. I really believe that.
Yeah, very cool, man. So
it's like we were hunter gatherers in Paleolithic time.
Right.
A bunch of people would get together and say, we got to go hunt a mammoth. And because if we don't hunt a mammoth, the village isn't going to get through the winter. And we really believe in our village and we want our family to live. So we're going to go on a mission. We might die hunting this mammoth, but we're willing to take that chance.
But they're willing to go,
for the women and children or whatever. And so it's all about mission. And so it's a bunch of like you like elk hunting with a bow, right?
Right.
Imagine a bunch of guys and gals out there feeding their families. That's like a spiritual vision. That's like a spiritual mission. It's very important. It's literally life. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely. It's aligning them around a purpose that is larger than just having some menial task or job. It's fantastic.
Exactly.
So one of the questions that we had—
By the way, there's no such thing as a menial task or job. There's no such thing.
Well, it's interesting. No, there's not. I agree. But there are some people that if they're not in an organization that has an inspiring vision, it has an inspiring mission, and it has alignment of a purpose greater than what they're doing, then people can look at it that way. They can get lost.
I totally agree. And then if that's the case, let's say that you are stuck in a job where you're a dishwasher at a restaurant. And the guy who runs the restaurant, he really puts bad stuff in the food and he overcharges the customers and he doesn't treat his employees well. Still, you can have the vision that you're providing for your family.
You absolutely can. Absolutely.
And you're going to clean those dishes really well and make them clean so people don't get sick. So I mean, it can happen at every level. But
That's
I
right.
agree.
Yeah, love it. Totally.
But it's better if you work for a restaurant where the guy cares.
That's right. So we had said to ask you the question, what is a leader?
Well, I remember in college, I went through basic training at the Air Force Academy.
Uh-huh.
And when you're a basic cadet, they give you this book of knowledge. And in the book of knowledge, there are a bunch of quotations you have to memorize.
Yeah.
And I remember that in that book of knowledge that I had to memorize was, a leader is a man who can get other people to do what they don't want to do and like it, Harry S. Truman. Now, in today's parlance, a leader is a person who can get other people to do what they don't want to do and like it, because it's not limited to men by any stretch of the imagination. But really, the essence of that is two things. What do we need to do, and how do I motivate and empower you to get it done? And so if you're going to decide what needs to be done, a leader is the one with the vision to decide we're going over that hill instead of that hill. And then to motivate people to go over hill A instead of hill B. And then to work together with the team to get the resources to get to hill A. So really, it involves two things: direction and empowerment. So it's like a vector. The length, and the power, the success of the leader is how well have you motivated people in a direction, and how well have you empowered them to move in that direction. Those are the two elements of leadership as I see it.
Empowerment being very different than telling them how to do every minute detail. You give them the overall direction. That's where we need to get. You figure out how we get there.
Exactly.
I trust you. Love that.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. So what? We spent so much time talking about the company. I'm just so fascinated, Joel, with what you guys are doing. I think we hit some of the major things. Anything else that we haven't touched on with respect to your company that's really led to your success that we haven't really touched on?
Well, the entire reason for the success of the company is the people. That's actually true. A company is a group of people on a mission together, and we happen to codify that with laws that allow you to have certain tax benefits and certain legal protections and so on. But that's at core, a company is a hunting party out to provide for their families. I have been very lucky to be surrounded by people in Trans Astra who are uniquely talented and motivated. Awesome. And that's it in a nutshell. And so, what is a leader, you asked? What are some of the features that a leader has to have? One thing is to be able to pick people who are appropriate for your company. And if you look, in my opinion, if you look at successful companies, someone in that company, the founder, the CEO, president, someone has to have a skill in picking people.
Sure. Absolutely. Definitely. Have you guys done anything on your end to, what have you guys done to make sure that you pick the right people?
Well, one of the issues is I've been lucky enough to have lots of different experiences with lots of different types of folks over my life. And I try to be observant. I try to pay attention and try to notice what characteristics in people are correlated with the ability to perform in different environments. And as a technical person, because I'm mostly a technical person, making progress in science and engineering is largely about collaboration. And so in interviewing people, talking to people, if you've been around decades like I have, you get pretty good at figuring out who can get the job done when you're talking to them. The other thing is, although my background is mostly in engineering and science. I also have a little bit of background in psychology and psychometrics. I'm certified in an area of psychometrics called KAI, which is a measure of creativity and innovation. And and in my work in psychology, I've learned that quantitative measures are important. So we do quantitatively measure people's psychological fingerprints at Trans Astra.
Very cool. That's fantastic. I think the best companies out there have psychometric analysis around behavior, attitude, how they problem solve, different things like that. So let me ask, if you were going to hire a CEO to take the reins for your company, Joel, what's the one book that you'd require that they read before taking over for you?
Well, a book that had a profound impact on me in the last 10 years is Denial of Death by Ernst Becker. Denial of Death was a Pulitzer Prize winning book from the 1970s. And it's about the business of what makes a healthy human being. He brings together everything from the worlds of psychoanalysis, existential philosophy, and psychology, and says in a nutshell that the key is to have a mission. And the key is what he calls an immortality project. It's not a vanity project. Some people hear the word immortality project and they think it's a billionaire trying to build a company and a big company with a legacy. That's not it at all. Someone's immortality project could be their children. Could be raising their children really well, but it's what you do in life to leave a mark.
Your legacy
that lasts beyond yourself. It's the word legacy is also correct and also a little dangerous because people might think that it's a legacy of how other people think about you. There's nothing to do with that. It's about on your deathbed knowing that you did something right in the world and made the world a better place.
Awesome. Very cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. Joel, great to have you on the show. I want to take a minute and just summarize some of my key takeaways. First of all, my biggest, probably the largest takeaway for me is that we're out there looking at technologies and how to literally mine asteroids and for so many reasons around furthering human race and just blown away by the whole conversation we had in the first 20 minutes. So thank you for sharing with that and look forward to hearing how you guys progress. So some of the other things is that you said that leaders change on the business side. Leaders that change the world have an inspiring vision and mission that gives the team something more than just having a job, a purpose that they can align themselves with and attach to and be passionate about. And when you have that, you have a culture of passionate people. And we talked about the definition of a leader. A leader is a great quote by Truman. A leader is a man that can get other people to do. A leader is a human that can get other people to do what they don't want to do and like it. And really all about that, determining what we need to do and then help motivate themselves to do it. And it's all about that direction and empowerment. The other one was an entire reason for the success of the companies, the people. I think that's fantastic. So Joel, if there was one takeaway that you'd really want the audience to absorb, what would that be?
Live your best life.
Live your best life. Simple and sweet. Anything more you want to add?
Thank you so much, Patrick.
You bet.
I thought your summary was a brilliant summary of what we talked about and very cogent, right on point. Awesome. Chad GPT-4 couldn't have done a better job.
Okay, all right, cool. Fantastic. Joel, thank you for being on the show. It was fantastic having you, man.
My pleasure. It was just a delight. Thank you so much.
You bet. And for the audience, please hit the like and subscribe button and help us spread the word about what we're doing here. We're helping the next generation of leaders and CEOs be that much more successful. With that, we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot.